My name is Derek Larrabee. I am a senior director here at Spinutech, and I sit over the SEO, CRO, and content delivery teams. I'm here with Scott, who's going to introduce himself and also just take you through a little bit about Spinutech before we get into the real meat of today's presentation.
Thanks, Derek. Again, my name is Scott McAtasney. I am the Associate Director of UX Development, and I handle a lot of the integrations into Sitefinity. So before we dive deeper into search strategy, let me take a moment to introduce Spinutech and who we are. Spinutech is one of the top mid-market digital growth agencies in the US, focused on helping brands grow smarter and faster through data-driven strategy, design, and technology. We're a team of over 100 specialists, all working together to build and manage end-to-end digital experiences for our clients. In fact, we host, manage, and maintain more than 1,000 websites for organizations across a variety of industries. Simply put, we drive growth by aligning digital strategy with measurable business outcomes. Now, if you're like most digital teams, you're already doing a lot of things right. You're earning traffic through SEO, paid media, and great content. You're driving people to your site and getting them interested in what you have to offer. But all that work only pays off if visitors can actually find what they're looking for once they're on your site. And that's where we see a huge breakdown. When visitors can't find what they need, conversions stall. They leave the site frustrated, not because they weren't interested, but because experience didn't help them take the next step. And here's what's really interesting. Research shows that 43% of visitors use site search first when they land on a site. These are high intent users. They know what they want and they're trying to get there fast. And we found that users who use site search are two to three times more likely to convert if they can find what they're looking for. And that's a massive opportunity that's within reach. So understanding that site search isn't just a box on your website, it's an actual growth lever, one that can dramatically increase conversion rates, improve user experience, and amplify return on investment across all your marketing channels. Every campaign, every SEO initiative, and every ad click, they all lead to this moment. And if site search is optimized, it helps users complete the journey. If it's not, that's where the momentum dies. So we know that site search represents a big opportunity. It's one of the most direct paths to conversion when it works well. But here's the reality. For most brands, it doesn't work well. Not because teams don't care or they aren't investing, but because search is often treated as an afterthought. And that's where the pain points really start to show up. And when search is treated in this way, it's the users that feel it the most. Whether they're looking for a product, a resource, or an article, when the results returned are outdated or irrelevant, that immediately creates doubt. Then, even if the results are somewhat relevant, there's no real prioritization or personalization happening. Every visitor sees the same thing, regardless of what they searched for before or what kind of user they are. It's a flat, one-dimensional experience. On top of that, mobile search is often broken or painfully slow. And with so much traffic now happening on mobile, it's a huge issue. If users can't easily type or tap through search results, we'll just back out and move on. Another challenge that we see all the time is lack of visibility on how people are actually using your search. Without analytics, brands don't know what visitors are looking for or what they're not finding, so the experience never really improves. And finally, there's often a disconnect between search and the rest of the site's ecosystem. That means users might get a snippet of what they're after, but not the full picture, and they can't find related pages, specifications, or the next logical step. Now, all of this might sound like small stuff on the surface, but the impact is very real. Poor search experiences lead to wasted money because you're paying to drive people to your site, but they're not converting once they get there. It also creates frustration. A user who can't find what they need in a few clicks doesn't think, oh, this is just a technical issue. They think this brand doesn't get me. And that frustration translates directly into lost trust and higher bounce rates. And ultimately, all of that adds up to missed revenue and stalled conversions. People abandon the process, whether that's a purchase, a form fill, or even just engaging more with your content. In other words, poor search doesn't create fiction. It quietly undermines every marketing and user experience investment that you've made. So now that we've looked at where site search tends to break down, let's talk about what good looks like. Because the good news is improving search doesn't always require a massive rebuild or a brand new platform. Sometimes it's about small intentional UX improvements that can make a huge difference in how effectively search drives conversion. When we think about optimizing search, the goal is simple. Make it easier for users to find what they need and make the results more relevant to what they actually want. This is where UX and technology come together to create a smarter, more human experience. The question becomes, how do we do that? Well, one of the easiest wins is autocomplete. When you guide users as they type, predicting what they might be looking for, you dramatically reduce drop-offs. This is a subtle interaction, but it helps users feel more understood and supported right away. Next option is filters and facets. This is about giving people control over the results, letting them narrow down by category, price, location, or whatever is relevant to your content. When users can quickly refine results, they're more likely to find what they're looking for and move closer to a conversion. There's also relevance tuning. Not all results should look and be treated equally. We want to prioritize content, products, or pages that are most likely to convert. That might mean weighting certain pages higher, boosting recent content, or using behavioral data to adjust rankings dynamically. And now we're seeing a real shift in AI-powered search. This goes beyond matching keywords. It's about understanding intent. Using natural language processing, AI can interpret what users mean, not just what they type. That means smarter, more contextual, and more human results, which directly improves engagement and satisfaction. And finally, consider the search results template itself. It isn't just a list of links, it's an opportunity to showcase. You can design your results to highlight key offerings, suggest related content, or surface promotions and new products. Think of it as turning your search experience into a discovery engine, not just a utility. So once you start thinking about optimizing search for conversions, the next question naturally becomes, well, how do we actually make that happen? Well, there's a wide range of approaches depending on your goals, your budget, how sophisticated you want that experience to be. So these are some implementation options that we often use when doing a Sitefinity build. At the foundation, you've got native Sitefinity search. It's fast, it's easy to configure, easy to implement, a great starting point for teams that need a functional search experience without a lot of complexity. The trade-off, of course, is it has limited features. You'll get reliable basic performance, but it won't handle advanced things like personalization, typo tolerance, or deep analytics out of the box. Still, for smaller sites or content-driven experience, it can absolutely get the job done. The next step up is something like Azure Cognitive Search, which brings AI into the mix. This option helps the system understand context and intent. So instead of just matching keywords, it starts interpreting what the user means. It's a nice middle ground. It comes in the mid-range cost price point, but with a much more intelligent experience. It does require some setup and configuration, but the payoff is that users get smarter, more relevant results. Next, you can look at third-party integrations like Algolia if you really want full control of your search results. It's a platform built for speed, relevance, and user experience. It handles things like typo tolerance, instant search, autocomplete, and highly tunable ranking models, all designed to make results feel lightning fast and personalized. The trade-off is cost and complexity. You'll need a custom integration, and there's an annual licensing cost, but you're getting a truly premium search experience. And finally, you've got custom AI-powered search. This is where you're building something that's highly tailored, often using natural language processing or semantic understanding to deliver human-like results. It's the most advanced approach and offers incredible accuracy and flexibility. It can come at a higher cost, often based on usage or query pricing, but this is a great option for data-rich environments where search plays a central role in the customer journey. So there's no one-size-fits-all answer. The key is matching the technology to your business goals, whether it's a quick implementation and reliability or deeper intelligence and scalability. What's exciting is that even modest investments in better search technology can dramatically improve conversion rates and user satisfaction. Next, I'll hand it over to Derek.
Thanks, Scott. So really great insights on just site search as a technology and obviously just a ton of options on what to deploy to your site. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and just talk about how site search and some of the interactions with site search that your audience is taking on is really an opportunity to create sort of a loop of feedback for your marketing efforts. So, again, what are you doing with this data is kind of the thing that we're going to talk about a little bit here, because every single search into that internal site search, to Scott's point, we're really trying to solve a friction point and get the user past that. We can learn from that a lot too, to incorporate into further site changes or meaningful strategy changes. So, what can we do? We can definitely track, the amounts of no results and sort of, just queries that are being search terms that are being searched in it within internal site search that tell us, hey, we have a content gap or a messaging gap. So just an example of one insight where this search data, if equipped and given to you from this platform, can really help you with some of those additional data points. Additionally, we can also just use some of these top search terms and keywords, since they are emblematic of how your audience is searching for your products or solutions or even your services. We can use that type of keyword terminology just like we would use it to inform site structure when we're building a site. We can use it to augment, to add to, and to supplement page coverage and keyword coverage in general. We can also just kind of look at where are these site searches happening. There's a lot of data that can uncover, well, hey, it seems like a lot of folks are searching from this particular area of the site, or hey, a lot of folks are just jumping straight to site search on that homepage. Well, what does that mean, right? What does that mean to the site experience, or what does that mean for how that homepage is laid out, and what can it tell us to iterate off of and optimize that? We can also just kind of use some of those ideas from search to uncover different conversion points, right? So how do we get into and see a friction point through internal site search and use that to influence a conversion rate optimization experience to perhaps remove some of that friction? So we'll keep going on this, and we'll look at a little deeper on just tools and technology that can help with this on the next slide. But really, it's just about getting that data at your fingertips. That's the thing that teams could be most excited about here. You're going to get a lot of insights about the type of searches that are happening, and the types of data that are being fed into that experience through Sitefinity or through some of those additional search providers like Algolia. You're also going to be able to do things within your Google Analytics platform, and with any other sort of visual materializations of that data, whether it be through Power BI or Looker. It's really easy to get into GA4 as a platform and say, hey, track those internal site searches, and you're going to unlock a whole lot of search query data that's being fed into that internal site search functionality that can tell you a lot of those things that we talked about on the prior slide. So it's really just about looking at the platforms that your marketing ops team is using to realize ROI on marketing efforts, and making sure that, knowing that there's internal site search functionality coming, into focus for you. It's about knowing which platforms to go to and where to sort of set up and make sure that tracking is really happening. The next thing we're going to talk about here is just, using that data to make sure that we are fueling any personalization or any other larger functionalities that are at our fingertips with a platform like Sitefinity. Again, that search data is going to give us a lot of insights on what users are interested in finding or can't find, right? So how does that data go back into some of these custom content workflows, some of these nurturing workflows that we know are a functionality? And how do we get those things to inform some of those efforts, so we're not just starting at zero? Search doesn't stop on the website. We know that. And so it should act as a data mechanism for us to renew and invigorate certain site experiences, on an ongoing basis. When we think about omnichannel personalization from a tools and tech standpoint on the next slide, you're going to see some pretty familiar, UX and interfaces that marketers are pretty comfortable with. So on that next slide, we're talking about things like using Sitefinity insights out of that dashboard directly. Anything that we're doing on the site can obviously be fed into some of those background dashboards, especially with respect to any site personalization. There are also just tons of ways to connect and grab insights from site search and make sure that those ideas, those concepts, those sticking points are going out and messaging through HubSpot marketing campaigns, through Marketo. How are those friction points? How are maybe valuable insights from that platform helping you set up an ecosystem that is, to Scott's point earlier, really making that user understand that you get them, you understand where their friction points are and where their sort of needs are within their funnel procurement process, and you can really use that data in a really meaningful way. The next thing that we're going to talk about is just how do you know that, in a world where you are taking these insights from an internal site search mechanism and you're trying to deploy changes to your marketing and messaging structure, how do you know it's working, right? As you pile on these iterative improvements and you realize success from some of these changes, how do we know it's working? We're just going to go through a couple of the measurables that we think are really important for this. I think you're going to see a theme here that is just quality over quantity. And so what I mean by that is, what is the conversion rate from the users that the site is capturing, right? If you have a really good breakdown of your different channel mixes that are sending users into your website, then you would in theory be able to see that conversion rate and that count of the amount of users that are converting from each of those channels improve slowly over time. And the great thing about that is any improvements that you might make today, those are going to stay with you and we can iterate off of that. So conversion rates by channel, by source medium are going to be really important. You're also going to be able to look at things like click-through rate, the amount of time that folks are staying on the site, the average size of an order. All of those things come down to that quality of a visitor over the quantity of a visitor. And so if you imagine, a user that has taken the time to stick around and search again, because they likely came to the site from a search engine anyways, and they're going to put in the time to search again and try to really get to the bottom of the solution they feel is on your site, that's a pretty high quality visitor. That's a pretty high quality interaction. So all of the things Scott pointed out to recapture that user and get them back into the site via that internal site search, those things are also indicators of quality in other channels too, as we look at conversions, as we look at the amount of time that user engages on the site and so on. So a lot of opportunity here to not only just open up a lot more data at your marketing team's fingertips through internal site search mechanisms, but just a lot of opportunities to take that data and make it meaningful for your teams, whether it be through direct site implementation and changes or just hypotheses of things to test down the road. So what does this sort of all mean as we look ahead to 2026? Site search is not one of those just, nice to haves anymore. I think that more and more as users become accustomed to search experiences across their internet browsing experience, it's going to be really important moving into 2026 that we are paying attention to this area of the site as a key piece of functionality. We really need to be reinforcing internal site search and really that fix to friction as a conversion accelerator. How do we get those folks that we're about to lose back into the funnel to engage with our products, our solutions, our services? In 2026, we need to be using that data from really anywhere and everywhere to become smarter marketers and to become more empathetic with our users. We also just know that these keywords, the intent behind them, and all of the data in this tool can really power some of those deeper, strategies, some of those deeper implementations across channels as well. Because if we know that, certain ideas, certain concepts are really, burning inconveniences to our audience, we can be much more intentional about solving and clearing those blockers. All right. On this next slide, we obviously got to do a little bit of a shameless promotion here. And so everything that we talked about today is a prime sort of activity that our teams are obviously very well versed in. We know that you're earning traffic. That's what websites do. So if any of these things kind of struck a curiosity for you, or if you're just wanting to talk further about any of these ideas, don't hesitate to scan that QR code, get in touch with someone from our team, and we'd be happy to, just sit down with you and have some of those exploratory conversations about, where we feel your team should be going to utilize this site search and the data that comes with it.